Morning, students. Hope you all are doing fine. Today, I'll be sharing with you another individual level variables, and namely personality and values. If you do remember, in our foregoing sessions, we have discussed, actually in chapter 1, I have introduced you the introduction. In chapter 2, we discussed about individual level, the first individual level verbs, namely the physical abilities and the intellectual abilities, and at the same time biographical factors. In a way, I've said that those factors are very important to consider as they are thought to be having implication for organizational level behaviors. Today, we'll be looking at what personalities, values is, and how these two variables are related with important organizational level variables managers are interested in. There have been a different definition for personality. Just to simply define, personality is the sum total of ways in which an individual reacts and interacts with others, the measurable trait a person exhibits. Therefore, when we say personality, it means it is how a person, or manifestation of how a person interacts or relates with the external environment, how he or she relates with another individual. Then you may wonder, why do we study personality? Why do we study personality? Actually, I will be discussing this issue very shortly, but to give you an overview, nowadays, managers are less interested in the abilities, the experiences a person or the potential employees possess. Rather, they are interested much in personality, because if a person have trainable mind, just hopefully, even you can share a lot of experience with your own jobs, we can make a person qualified to perform a specific task, maybe with 1 year training, with 6 or 3 months training. Hopefully, you appreciate, or you can go back and see how much it takes to do your job. But when we come to personality, you cannot mold the personality of an individual within 3 or 4 months training, as you might install or share the basic knowledge or skills you may need to perform your task. That is why it is important nowadays. Before I discussing those things, I need to look at what are the determinants of personalities. Generally speaking, hereditary, that means partly your personality is determined biologically. That is to say, some of your behavior, some of your personality are inherited from your mother and the fathers, or your forefathers and the mothers. That is what it is. Heredity determined genetically. This is one dimension or determinants of personality. Others argue that personality is not determined by nature. Rather, personality is determined by the environment in which a person grows up. That means your personality is partly the function of the environment. The other thing, still your personality is the result of the situation. Hope it will be clear with example. Your personality, as I tried to say before, there are some personality dimension which is genetically determined. At the same time, your early socializing was to be made by schooling, families, religious institutions. You have been interacting, especially at your early age, may tend to determine the personality you have. The other thing is the situation. A person may display or exhibit different personality in different situations. Let me ask you one question. The personality that you probably exhibit in church is quite different from the personality you may exhibit when you are relaxing with your friends at hotel or in hotel. Therefore, situation may partly determines your personality. But nowadays there is tremendous research results that argue heredity is more important than the environment and the situation in determining one's personality makeup. To support their argument, many researches have been done in twins children. Or twins that are born from the same family were made to grow in different culture, in different situation, but still the research outcome shows that these two twins, though they have grown in different situation, in different culture, they tend to display more or less similar personalities with their twins which have been growing in another culture. Indeed, having said this much on the determinants of personality, let me take you to the personality traits. Because the personality of an individual is judged or measured in terms of the traits you display or you exhibit. Indeed, an individual may have thousands or hundreds of traits, which eventually impossible to discuss all these traits. Therefore, I will be sharing with you the more widely accepted model of personality, especially the Myers-Briggs types of indicator and Big Five model. This is the most widely appreciated model of a personality. This model tries to condense the hundreds or thousands of potential traits an individual can display to more manageable and more easily measurable size of traits. And let me discuss each briefly. The first one is Myers-Briggs types of indicator. This model identified around 16 possible personality types, such as ENTJ, which means actually it is an acronym. E stands for extrovert, N stands for let's look here. T stands for sensing, J stands for judging. These are they have identified these personalities and they identify different combination of these personalities. But concerning the validity of this model, the research outcome shows mixed result. And they concluded that MBTI is maybe good for only self-awareness and counseling, and they advised that this model, namely the MBTI model, should not be used for selecting or making HRM related decision. For example, should not be used for selection purpose or while we are recruiting employees. The other most widely accepted among theorists and academicians, at the same time practitioners, is a Big Five model of personality dimension. This model has condensed the possible many personality dimensions into 5, such as extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, openness to experience. And it has been described, extroversion are described as sociable, gregarious, and assertive. The opposite is considered as introvert, which it may says those introverts tend to be timid, reserved, less talkative, whereas these extroverts are very sociable, gregarious, and assertive. The other dimension identifies the big five model of personality is agreeableness. This agreeableness is those who score high or positive on agreeableness tend to be good-natured, cooperative, and trusting, whereas non-agreeable, those scoring on non or considered as non disagreeable, tend to be antagonistic, less cooperative, less trusting. Whereas conscientiousness, those scoring better or good on conscientiousness dimension, tend to be responsible, dependable, persistent, and organized. Whereas those who are scoring low on conscientiousness tend to be irresponsible, less reliable or less dependable, and disorganized. The other dimension is emotional stability, which measures the extent to which a person is calm, self-confident, secure, whereas those are considered as emotionally unstable tend to be insecure, depressed and moody. Whereas openness to experience measure the extent to which a person is creative enough, imaginative, and artistic and sensitive. Those who are considered scoring low on openness to experience tend to be dull, unimaginative, and they are insensitive. It means they are not as such curious to learning new ideas, new knowledge. Rather, they are happy with status quo. They are happy working in conventional working environment design in new and innovative environment. Then the next session will be how this big five model of personality is related with important human behaviors we are interested in explaining, predicting, and controlling as managers. Let me give you few minutes to relate how these personalities are related with different behaviors of employees at workplace. Research has shown this to be a better framework actually. Unlike the first model I shared with you, the research has supported the applicability of these big five personalities. For example, high conscientious people develop more job knowledge, exert greater effort, and have better performance. The other big five traits have implication for work. Emotional stability is related with job satisfaction. That is to say, if a person with high emotional stability tended to be more happier with his or her job than the opposite. Extroverts are tended to be more happier and having more social skills. And to add you more, consider for example some job. For example, to be a good leader, beside the skill, the knowledge the leader are supposed to have, what kind of personalities do you think or do you consider should be possessed by that leader? For example, do you think that a leader which is not orator enough be a good leader? Hopefully your answer will be no. Do you think that a leader who is not sociable with his colleagues and employees under him, do you think he will be good leader in the organization? Still, I hope many of you may say no. Take another one, salesperson. To be a salesperson, in addition to the marketing knowledge, experience, he or she has to possess what kind of personality you advise or you guess to be possessed by that salesperson. Hopefully, you may say salesperson should be good communicator. You may say the salesperson should be agreeable, should be extrovert. Thus, if the salesperson, though he or she may has good academic record in marketing management or sales management, do you think he or she good marketer practically without having those personality I mentioned before you, such as being a communicator, being agreeableness, being sociableness? Without this, whatever score, whatever grade he or she has in marketing, she can't be a good marketing in the real world. Therefore, from this big 5 traits, we can say that some of the traits, individual traits described by big five model of personality can predict relevant work-related behaviors. Other personality which haven't been covered by Big 5 personality include, for example, self-evaluation, Machiavellianism, narcissism, self-monitoring, risk-taking. For example, Machiavellianism. Actually, this is a personality dimension associated with a person Machiavelli, who wrote a book named The Prince in the 14th century, if I'm not mistaken. He described Machiavellianism as a pragmatic, emotionally distant power player who believes that ends justify the means. Bear in mind here, it says ends justifies the means. Therefore, a person which is characterized by this kind of personality tend to be more goal-oriented. They are more committed to accomplish their goal at any expense. Because here Machiavellianism says that ends justify the means. It doesn't matter whatever means, procedure you used to accomplish your goal. Your success is measured in terms of the goal you have achieved. That is what we call Machiavellianism. To add you another, self-monitoring, the ability to adjust a behavior to meet external or situational factors. Here is to say, a person which is characterized by high self-monitoring tend to be more adaptive to changing environment. But some individual, you might have encountered such people, even you might have a friend or family members who has low self-monitoring personality, which is to say, some people tend to be rigid, tend to be highly principled, and they face difficulty of adapting themselves to the changing situation. And this personality dimension can predict the rate at which, for example, a person can grow to the upper ladder of leadership position. For example, take some politicians. So many politicians are characterized by as having high self-monitoring personality. When the situation changes, they have automatically can change themselves very easily according to the changing situation. But you might have encountered some others says no. Just you might have heard a person or a friend or family member saying, what I can do to myself, just I am born this way, can't change myself. But still others can easily change themselves. themselves. That is self-monitoring. Actually, those individuals having high self-monitoring are characterized by high speed moving to leadership positions, high speed of easily associating or adapting themselves to the changing environment. The other one is risk-taking personality dimension. This is also important actually. Take yourself. What is your propensity to take risk? Some individuals are willingness to take some calculated risk, but others still, they are very fearful to make a decision. Therefore, from a research outcome shows that those individuals who have high propensity to take risks, they tend to be more successful than those people with low risk-taking propensity. Actually, even look, for example, business persons, unless otherwise they have good risk-taking personality, would you think that they will be successful in the business? Many people who fear to take risk tend to work in more relatively certain environment. That means, for example, they prefer to be employers than having their own business, because owning a business involves risk actually. But those individuals who has high risk-taking tendency, even they may drop the job they are working in, government or private, and they go out to start their own business. And you might, actually, there are countless people actually who have such kind of personality. The other personality dimension shared by scholars are what we call type A and type B personalities. Actually, just for your knowledge purpose, type A personality are those individuals, for example, who are impatient, always moving, walking, eating rapidly, whereas B type people are the opposite actually, who are calm, very patient, and like. The other individual level variables we are interested in today is values, individual values. When we say values, it relates to the basic convictions or beliefs that you have to guide yourself, or that determine how you live your life, how you interact with people around. Therefore, as we have mentioned with personality, the value of a person can predict different and important organizational behaviors or individual behaviors. Your values. For example, you may have a strong conviction that lying is evil, lying is bad. You may have strong beliefs that being honest is important. That is your value. Therefore, if, for example, have a value, if, for example, you are a kind of person believing honesty is very important, then do you think that in an organization where your colleagues are completely honest, or your pharmacist is honest? Hopefully, your answer is no. At the same time, even the research outcome shows that unless there is alignment between individual values and organizational values may be described as culture. If there is no compatibility, or in other way, if the individual value carried by individual is contradicting with organizationally held values in the culture, most probably the person will experience dissatisfaction, and consequently results in dropped productivity, then turnover. Therefore, as a manager, again, when you are recruiting or selecting employees, it is better to see or measure the value of the individuals, the values here. To what extent the value of the individuals are compatible with organizationally held values and a culture. Because, look here. Values provide understanding of the attitude, the motivation, and the behavior of the individual. It can influence how you perceive the environment or the world around yourself or around us. Values represent what is right or wrong. Therefore, values can predict a person's attitude, motivation, other behavior that means, for example, job satisfaction, productivity, and turnover. If your value is not compatible with organizational held values, most probably you may quit your job. The research outcomes also show the same. Rockich and Value Survey has tried to classify values into two: terminal values and instrumental values. The terminal values means the end result or the desirable end state of existence, what you wanted to accomplish. Whereas instrumental values describes the preferable modes of behavior or means you believe or use to accomplish their objectives. The most important thing is values are important because, as I have said in the foregoing slide, values determine your attitude, employees' behavior, employees' motivation. Then the other thing, as a manager, it has also another implication. For example, values may vary across culture. The values you think it should be upheld may not hold true in other culture with different, or in other country with different culture and value system. At the same time, even within the same organization, values are different across age. The values of old employees is different from young employees. The values between females and male workers still are different. Therefore, this implies that as a manager, your management approach to these people with varying values, so that you can effectively manage these people. If you are using the same management approach with people having different values, result in ineffective management. And at the same time, as much as possible, when you are recruiting an employee, you need to consider their values so that you can have ideal match between the employee and the organization. Here is an example. For example, how values difference between groups or between among associations. For example, the values to be held by executives, union members, are activists are different. Look here. The terminal and instrumental for executives, the terminal and instrumental values for union members, the values for activists they are different. Even within the organization, as I told you before, still they are different, because nowadays our employees are so heterogeneous. Our employees are composition of different background, different religion, different ethnic groups, and different age groups. All this imply different value system. Linking personality and the values to the workplace. Actually, I have discussed it to you before. This personality and the values, which we have described as individual level values, they indicate, or it can give you a good signal to check. Here, the theory identified 6 personality types and indicated what are most interesting profession for these different personalities. Here, look at it. There appear to be intrinsic difference in personality between people. There are different types of jobs, and people in jobs are concurrent ways their personality should be more satisfied of lower turnover. This is to say, a person with realistic job preference is different from a person with investigative personality. What are the related job preference? Please find in the book I shared with you. You can find for what kind of jobs preference are for realistic, investigative, and enterprising. You will find more detailed match between the personality and job preference. Person organization fit. At the same time, in the previous slide, here it is person job fit. Some jobs require some unique personality. Therefore, as a manager, trying to match the personality of the individual with required jobs requiring that personality would result in ideal person job fit. In addition, here is what is framed as person organization fit. Employees' personality must be with organizational culture. Actually, I've said it before some two or three slides. There, I covered that. When you are recruiting a person, you need to make sure that at least there should be some minimal personal organizational fit in terms of the values a person possesses. If there is a contradiction, most probably an employee cannot stay longer in your organization. Before that, you might have faced a lesser job satisfaction, productivity. The global implication, what is the implication of these personalities and the values? Do frameworks like Big Five transfer across culture? Yes, but the frequency of the types in the culture may vary because different, as I tried to say before, different countries have different cultural systems. What we accept in some culture may not be accepted in other culture, but still this personality values has global implication. Their knowledge, their reality is transferable from culture to culture. Then this is how Hofstede framework described how culture are differing across culture. Hofstede's framework for assessing culture, he identified 5 value dimensions that varies across culture, like as power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term and short-term orientation. This is to show how values may be varying across culture. What is acceptable in one culture may not be necessarily accepted in other culture. Depending on that, the Big Five personality model and the values who have been described are more applicable in more individualistic and capitalistic economy than in more socialistic and communal society. This is all what I have for you for today concerning individual level personality, namely personality and values. Have a nice time, and I advise you to read the book I shared with you on these issues. See you next time. Stay safe and blessed.